Lord, have mercy. Lord, we thank you. Lord, we love you.
Yes, Lord.
Lord, we know we can't make it without you. Lord, use me in spite of me to bless these your people. Fill me with your spirit.
Yes, Lord.
Lord, so that your people may know in this season, in this time, in this hour,
Yes,
what you would have them to know.
yes, Lord.
Lord, I give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory. Lord, if there be some heart that needs to be revived, revive it, Lord.
Yes, Lord. Yes,
You
Lord.
need some bowed down head, dear God, that's troubled, dear God, lift it up.
Please, Lord. Please, Lord.
Lord, if there be some soul in this place, dear God, that don't know you, Lord, get to know them, Father. And I just pray you have your way like only you can. Lord, I love you. And Lord, I thank you. It is in the mighty, blessed, and precious, and wonderful name of Jesus that I do pray. Amen. Amen. As you remain standing, turn your Bibles or your Bible apps to the book of Colossians on today. Book of Colossians. Chapter 1, beginning at verse number 9. Colossians chapter 1, verse 9. For this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you, to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, for all patience and long suffering with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light. He has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. Amen. Amen. Man, if you will, turn to your neighbor and I want you to give him a real big pretty smile. Amen. If you ain't too mean. Amen. And I want you to share with them these words. Neighbor, oh neighbor, pastor, with the help of the Holy Spirit, will preach from the Son. It's good to know Jesus. Amen. You may be seated. Amen. It's good to know Jesus.
Not you.
My. I've got the chance to know many people, and I've crossed paths with a lot of individuals. Some have left some good impressions on me. Some have left some not so good impressions on me. I've run across people that I've left good impressions on, and some not so good impressions on. And in this life, we run the path or cross paths with other individuals that we maybe grow acquaintance with, or we get to know, or we learn their name, or we learn who they are, we learn what makes them tick. We might have even said I do to some of those individuals, but how many of you can testify that it's you knowing Jesus is the best thing that you could have ever done? See, it's good to know, get to know people, and to have people that's in your corner, and to have people that's there with you, and to have loved ones that you're acquainted with. But I'm here to tell you, not until you have a relationship with Jesus the Christ can you really experience true friendship. See, it's good to know Jesus. Now, when we look at this text, here you have the Apostle Paul. And he's sharing with the church at Colossus. He's letting them know that he's really glad that they are actually doing what they should be doing. And we know that Paul went about and he helped to set up churches along with other individuals to help set up churches and preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. But one thing about Paul, Paul didn't leave the people that he had helped to win to Christ alone. He would write them from time to time. He let them know that he loved them from time to time. And he would allow them to experience his friendship, his love, and his truth. Now, wait a minute, preacher. What does that have to do with knowing Jesus? You've got to understand that Paul was preaching Jesus to them, and he's the one who introduced them to the Lord.
Yeah.
So he had a responsibility of making sure that their relationship with Christ would remain established. That they would not lose sight of what it is that God really and truthfully wanted them to do. How many of you can say that along this Christian journey, there's some things that have come along to try to distract you, to try to disrupt you, to try to throw you off of what you were supposed to be doing, and every now and again you got to hit the reset button and say, Lord, I know I ain't been reading my Bible like I should. Lord, I ain't been on my knees like I used to be on my knees. Lord, I haven't been to church like I should be in the church. But Lord, matter of fact, I've been in church, but my heart wasn't right while I was there. Lord, I need to hit the reset button.
Yes.
And every now and again, you got to be reminded that it's good to know. It's good to know Jesus. Can you remember when you was in relationship with Christ to the point to where even when you was praying, you used to cry and didn't know why you was crying? You remember you was at a point in your walk with Jesus when people used to tell you stuff and, kind of get on your nerve, or stuff would be happening all around you, and you was able to hold things together, and you say, the Lord gonna make a way somehow. See, sometimes we get thrown off, and every now and again we got to get back on track and be reminded, this is how we ought to be doing it. And see, you got to understand Paul was like a father in the ministry, and he would make sure that the church was handling their business, or if the church wasn't handling their business, he would share with them some things to help them to get it right, or if they was doing right, he'd encourage them to keep on doing what they were doing. Right. And here we have Paul writing to the church at Colossus. Now, here's the thing about the text. He says all of the things that he said, but at the same time, Paul, being one who helped to set up churches, was actually ministering and writing to a church that one of his co-workers or co-laborers in the gospel had helped to set up. His name was Epaphras. And Epaphras, what he did was, he helped to set up the church at Colossus, and we know that many of these churches that were set up, they were set up in places where folk worship idols. They had stuff going on around them, and it would really, in the natural mind, wouldn't even make sense that a church would even make it in those areas. But how many of you know the God we serve? There's nothing too hard for God. So God sent these men to help set up churches really in pagan societies, worshiping idol gods, people worshiping themselves, people doing stuff they shouldn't do and going against the will of God. Now, in verse number 9, look what it says. It says, for this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you. Paul had them on his mind. And he said to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. Now, Paul is praying for them that they would gain more knowledge of God, his wisdom, and the understanding that comes from above. Now, wait a minute. Why is that important? Because the Lord had to show me a long time ago in my own, what I call common sense, I ain't got no sense. So what we need is, as believers, we've got to grow in the knowledge of Christ and what he expects of us and what he wants for us and in his will. And how many of you know, in order to know his will, you've got to spend time with him?
Yes.
All right? Well, preacher, help me out and help me to understand that. Well, you know, I was watching college football on yesterday, and you know, I was just checking it out. I wasn't really rooting for no particular team, you know. But one thing came to mind is that when I look at these coaches, they don't just run up on the field and start coaching. There's some stuff that took place throughout the week before they went to the game. Okay, Pastor, help me out. You see, throughout the week, what they do is they gain knowledge on their opponent. They gain knowledge on their strengths and weaknesses. They gain knowledge on what it is, the strategy that they're going to use. And they gain knowledge in the game so that they can, when Saturday comes, Sister Alice, they're ready to do what they need to do so they can be as successful as they need to be. Okay, Pastor, what they got to do with anything? They got everything to do with everything. Can I help you? Those times when you fall on your knees and you ask the Lord for what you need. Those times when you read your Bible and the Holy Spirit speaks and ministers to you. Those times when somebody calls you and say, the Lord told me and I got a word for you. Those times when you know that you spent time with God and God literally spoke to you and told you what he needed to tell you. Can I help you? You're growing in the wisdom and spiritual understanding in the Lord. See, that you've got to understand that, guess what? That really and truly, some people expect God to do everything for them. But there's some times when you got to spend time with God. And it might take a little while you're there. But can I help you? If you stay long enough, God give you what you need to go handle that crazy boss, to go handle them crazy co-workers, to go handle the demands of life. Why? Because you don't operate off of your own wisdom. You're operating on the wisdom that only God can give. There's some stuff in your life, can I help you? You will not be able to do it on your own. And if you try to do it yourself, you will literally lose your mind. But until you seek the wisdom of God, until you seek spiritual understanding, you'll keep on running into that brick wall and wondering why. Why? I shared with us this morning that really and truly God has given us everything we need. But you know what we do? We treat God's word like a go-to instead of what it is that I do. See, God's word is not something that I just run to. God's word is something that I live. And God's word should guide my thoughts. It should guide my actions. And can I help you? The federal government doesn't decide what is right and wrong. God already did that. But what we do is we allow society, we allow our surroundings, we allow the world, we allow what's normal to guide us. But can I help you? The spiritual wisdom that comes from above, can I help you? It might go against some of the stuff the people sitting next to you at your job believes. But you got to be bold enough to stand up in it, even when you're standing all by yourself. Because it's a wisdom that doesn't come from the natural man. The natural man understanding not the things of God. See, the natural man is going to hear what God said. He might even understand what it means, but he don't understand the fact that he got to literally do it. Why I got to do that? See, when you have spiritual wisdom and spiritual understanding, then you'll understand why you got to pray for the enemy. See, when you got spiritual wisdom and spiritual understanding, then you're going to know why the Bible says to, guess what, you got to love and you can't curse. He says, bless and curse not. See, the natural mind ain't going to allow you to do that. See, the natural mind going to cause you to get back at folk, cuss folk out, get at them, and do all kind of stuff. But the spiritual wisdom that comes from above says, a soft answer turns away wrath. See, that's spiritual wisdom. And the natural mind can't understand that. See, the natural mind will say, that don't make us, but just see. But you see, no, the Lord says what he says and he means what he means. And we've got to believe what God has said. Why? Because God is real. And he expects us to follow what it is that he wants us to follow. Look what it says. It says that you may walk worthy of the Lord. fully pleasing him. Wait a minute. Rewind. That you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him.
All right. Come on.
Not yourself or nobody else.
Come on.
Do you realize we live in a world where everybody want to please everybody? And sometimes we want to please folk that don't even like us.
Yeah.
Right? They call it peer pressure. Adults, we talk about our children, but we deal with it too. I knew it was going to be quiet up in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We deal with it too. Because your neighbor, or because this one say, or because your loved one say, or this one say, or that one say, you ought to be doing it that way, or they say something about what you do. Now you're trying to change who you are. Guess what? To please them. Can I help you? You got God to please them. Guess what? Folk emotions change from day to day. So guess what? You might please them today, and tomorrow they're going to talk about the thing that they say they accepted the day before. So you might as well go ahead on and live for God, because can I help you? He changed it now. It says this. It says fully pleasing him. Being fruitful in every good work. And increasing, look at what it says again, in the knowledge of God. It goes back to knowing Jesus. And not leaning to our own understanding. Because you do know that really and truthfully, the enemy will cause us to revert back to our own understanding. How many of you, and I'm going to raise my hand, how many of you have thought something that was not even true, but because you assumed it, it began to fester? And nothing was there, and you come to find out that what you was thinking about and how you put it in your mind and started thinking about it, it wasn't even that. And then when the Lord revealed it like that, you were stressing and talking about stuff that, guess what, that didn't make any sense. See, that's leaning to your own what? Understanding. Because see, you got to understand that you got to walk what? In the spirit. So that you don't fulfill the desires of this what? This flesh. The flesh will cause you to do what you want to do to get what you want. And it cares nothing about what God wants. Why? Because the flesh has these selfish desires to seek those things that are really not important, but important to God. But look what it said. Be fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. Increasing in the knowledge of God. See, you've got to make sure that in order that you understand that in order to walk worthy, that you got to increase in knowing what God wants. Okay? Help me out. I can remember a time, Sister Brenda, in my younger days, when we would go to the store. Praise the Lord. And, I'm going to turn off the car. I'm about to open the door. Get your hand off that door. All right. Let's talk. Before we go in this store, don't touch nothing. Don't ask for nothing. And I won't buy nothing. Come on now. Come with me now. Right? So that when you get in the store, you don't touch nothing. And you don't ask for nothing. So you don't get the knocked out of you. See, in order to walk upright, you got to have the right information. So mama share with you that information before you do it, because even if she told you or not, she done told you before, and she expect you to remember what she done told you before, but you say, wait a minute, he might need a little reminder, so I'm going to tell him again. Right? And when you have the knowledge that you need, you can actually go out and live the way you need to live. Because now you got the right information. So you got to grow in the knowledge of God. If you don't prioritize what is right to God, you can't do right. Think about that. If you don't make what God says is important, you can't do right. Okay? What do you mean, Pastor? See, you got to understand, what's right is not how you feel and what you think or what somebody done said. What's right is what God has said. So if I want to be right, I've got to know what God says, because God's word is right.
That's right.
Come on.
So if I take this Bible and all I do with it is carry it to church, but I never carry it in my heart, guess what happens? It just becomes a book that I carry around. But when I take what's in it and begin to believe it and apply it,
Yes.
then it becomes something that will help me and guide me to do what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So, wait a minute, Pastor. What do you want me to know? See, when you know God's will, you will be able to walk upright in His sight and be fruitful. Okay? Why do you say be fruitful? Because it says being fruitful in every good work. See, that good works there is not always being on display to the point to where they'll put you on channel 10 for being a good Samaritan.
No.
Sometimes the good works is just you treating your neighbor right.
Yes, yes, yes.
See, we try to make this, we try to make this big old thing out of good works. Your good works is treating your neighbor like you want to be treated.
All right.
Amen.
That's good works. Your good works is being able to help somebody in their time of need, and you able to let them know, guess what? You don't owe me nothing because God paid it all. So guess what? Love you. Guess what? God love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Right? That's good work, and you can be fruitful. Why? Because you know God says what? God says love your neighbor as yourself. So how do you be fruitful? Well, Pastor, how do I be fruitful? When you do what God said to do. That's it. Yeah. That's being fruitful. You're able to live out what God has told you to live out.
Yes.
Doing His will is being fruitful. Wait a minute, Pastor. Help me out. See, it bothers me sometimes. When you have folk in church all of their life, and they just as mean as they was when they first got baptized. Praise the Lord. That bothers me. But at the same time, that bothers me. That they got a God to answer to. I can't do nothing about it. I have no heaven, no hell to put them in. It bothers me when the same stuff bothers you after 30 years that bothered you 30 years ago, and you ain't got no better. See, after a while of you knowing God and knowing who He is, can I help you? You might struggle with it, but can I help you? You ought to get better with it. You know why? Because you have the knowledge you need. And God has given you what you need to be able to live the way He wants you to live. But can I help you? It's not in your own doing. It's relying on what the Holy Spirit allows.
Yes.
See, people talk about me, praise the Lord, and my childhood. And I joke about it and I laugh about it because it's funny to me too. I was one of the most active children that ever walked the face of the earth. I was one of the most rambunctious children that ever walked the face of the earth. And some would even label me, Sister Lois, as bad. So when folk look at me and they give me a compliment, you know what I tell them? Sister Beverly, you're looking at grace. You're looking at grace. Because see, I may not be perfect and I may not be all that I need to be, want to be, but guess what? I ain't what I used to be. Because see, if I was what I used to be, can I help you? Lord, have mercy on my soul. Oh, Jesus. I'm glad I'm not what I used to be. And over time, what the Lord does is He grows you up. And some stuff that used to trip you up, don't trip you up like it used to trip you up. And every day gets sweeter than the day before. And see, we got to understand that. And we've got to understand that, guess what? God allowed you to see some fruit in your life. And allow you to experience some times in your life when really and truthfully you knew in that situation you reacted in a certain way. And God then got you to a point where you're able to handle it just a little bit better.
Yes, yes.
It says this. It says, strengthened with all might, according to his glorious power for all patience and long-suffering with joy. Pastor, what they got to do with anything? Got everything to do with everything. Do you realize that we blessed? And my mom used to tell me, boy, you crying a loaf of bread under your arm. You know what that means? That means that you got what you need, you're blessed, you ain't want for nothing, but yet you got nerve enough to open your mouth and complain like you ain't got nothing. I'm here to tell you, y'all, we are blessed. When you go back in the text and as for what these individuals had to go through, just to stand up for Christ, can I help you? Some folk would raise that Baptist finger and say, you know what? Deuces. You know why? They wouldn't deal with the struggle. They wouldn't deal with the strife that comes along with you just having faith in Christ and what he stands for and what he believes. There were those who were martyred for loving Christ and speaking up for Christ. There were those who were beaten and put in jail. Matter of fact, Paul wrote most of his letters from jail. Now wait a minute, Pastor. But he still talked about having strength.
No.
With all long suffering. Patience. With joy. And every time he opened up his mouth for Christ, he risked his life. Now we blessed. We can come to church and nobody holding up house is saying, yeah, you go to that church, I'm going to get you. No, we got free reign to go when we want, how we want. And matter of fact, we still got some empty spaces, and guess what? We won't come to church. Right? Because you know why? We don't realize how blessed we are. When you look at the text, Paul was getting them to understand that even though you go through for being a Christian, God won't give you strength.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Lord.
God will give you power. God will allow you to have some patience. God will allow you to deal with it with some long suffering and still have joy in your heart.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
wait. That's where that song comes from. Still have joy. Out of all the things I've been through,
Right.
I still have joy. Can I help you? Don't allow your circumstances to make you bitter. Let them make you better.
Yes, indeed.
Because can I help some of y'all? You're going to go through some stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And if you ain't went through nothing, get ready. So guess what? Life going to happen, but can I help you? God will give you what you need, and it reminds me of the text. It says, be anxious for nothing, but in all things through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your request be made known unto God. But the peace of God, what? That surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind through Christ Jesus. He's saying this. He's saying, I know it's too hard for you, but give it to me, and I'll give you peace. That's all he's saying. So he'll give you the ability and the strength to carry out his will, even when it's hard to do. Well, it says, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light. Now, here's the thing. It says, giving thanks to the Father, and then look what it says. Who has qualified us? Who has qualified us? Who has qualified us? You didn't qualify yourself.
Yeah. All right.
Who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light. Be careful of saying you're a self-made man or you're a self-made woman. That's dangerous. See, what God had to show me is that he allows us to get certain places and do certain things. Because there's some people who've done it just like I've done it, and they ain't where I'm at. Matter of fact, there were some folk who done it maybe more upright than I did, but they ain't where I have, where I am and have what I have. You know what they call it? They call it grace. So what we all got to understand is God allows us. He allows us to be qualified and be partakers of the inheritance of the saints. We're not self-made. Now look, here's the thing. It says God has qualified us. And one thing I want you to understand is this. God has approved and granted access to you as he saw fit. We mess up when we try to make it us who made ourselves or make it us that made us righteous. God made you righteous by you accepting his son as the only sacrifice. Because can I help you? At our best, we ain't got nothing. At our best, we ain't got nothing. But I had to understand and know that guess what? God makes, he makes the difference. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a child who may be a part of a well-to-do family. And Sister Deborah, I see it over and over again. You have some children who they'll look at their parents' inheritance, or they'll look at the thing that their parents are going to leave them, and really and truthfully, if they get their hands on it, Lord have mercy, it will be gone in 6 months. You know what that lets me know? It lets me know two things. Number one, they don't appreciate the hard work that mom and daddy had to go through to make that inheritance and get that stuff. And number two, they don't realize that the stuff that mom and dad is leaving them, they didn't even own that. Do you realize that as believers, we can be like ungrateful children? Put our hand out, and if God don't put nothing in it, we call him less than God.
Lord have mercy.
Not realizing God allowed us to have what we have and to do what we're able to do. And if he decides to give me what he gives me, praise the Lord. We'll look at God's stuff, Sister Lord, like he always did. Well, the Lord's supposed to bless me. No, he don't. He do what he want with his stuff. You know why? It's his stuff. You just better thank the Lord that, guess what? He's generous at times. And that he has a giving heart. But one thing you can always ask for, they will always give you. What, Pastor Wisdom? And I'm going to tell you right now, that's one thing you better pray for before he give you that money. Praise the Lord. Because if you ain't got wisdom, guess what? You ain't going to have it very long. But God gives us access, and he gives us and approves us to be a part of his family. Look what it says, verse 13 says, he has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of his son, of his love. He delivered us. How many of you can remember a time when you had this thing holding you down and the Lord has delivered you from it? Now, not to say that from time to time they don't do and call you, but God and the Holy Spirit give you strength to endure and have patience and not yield to what? To temptation. Right? He's delivered us what? From some stuff. Right? And look what it says. And it says, and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love. See, we're now citizens of another country. See, now when you have placed your faith in Christ, you're a citizen of another country. See, this is temporary. But it's amazing how we hold on to this when God got so much better waiting on us. And what we'll do is we'll act in this world like this world is it, and that's all we're going to ever have, and like God ain't got nothing waiting on us. But can I help you? You are part of God's kingdom. And can I help you? There's some stuff that God has in store for you that I haven't seen, and ears haven't heard, and neither has it entered into the heart of man what God has for you. And you've got to understand that. And guess what? The old church understood it. They would just say, I'm just a pilgrim pastor.
Yes.
You know why? They didn't hold on to stuff. You know why? They didn't have much stuff to hold on to. You know what I had to discover, Amber? Sometimes, when the Lord gives us more stuff to hold on to, it trips us up. And we don't give him as much of our heart as we need to. Because we start trusting in the stuff we can hold in our hand and forget the fact that it's the God in heaven, the invisible, strong God that allowed us to have it. So we got to understand that, guess what? That we are part of God's kingdom, and it's what he allows us to do, allows us to have, allows us access, allows us an inheritance, allows us to be a part of his family, and allows us entry into glory. I'm reminded, there were times this year where me and my younger son, we traveled to different places, and, they might have a football game or a basketball game or something of that nature. And, me and him would go. Now, mind you, at the moment in time, Sister Alice, I had no money in my pocket. But I was going to the game. Somebody said, wait a minute, Pastor, what you going to do? You going to sneak in? All right. Well, at the beginning of the year, they gave me what you call a coach's card. Now, let me share with you what the coach's card says. It says, entry to any district sporting event of youth and one other. My son ain't had to have no money. He ain't had to have admissions. All he had to do was have me with him. Where you going with that, Pastor? See, you got to understand, you're connected by the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
And you got access to the throne of God through his son. And you got to understand that, guess what? Because of Jesus and what he's done and him laying down his life, now you can have access to the kingdom of God.
Yes.
And guess what? You know what the Lord said? The Lord said, you better put that wallet up. You ain't got enough to pay. Right? But a grateful heart will put in some work. Praise the Lord. Amen. But look what it says. Last verse. It says, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sin. We have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sin. Make it plain. Well, I will. Just imagine that you yourself had done something that really and truthfully could have landed you in jail. You guilty? With no question, you were guilty. Everybody knew you were guilty, had plenty of witnesses. Matter of fact, in your mind and in your heart, you were ready to confess. Yep, I did. But somebody came along out of the blue and took the rap from you. Well, Pastor, what they got to do with anything? Got everything to do with everything. See, Jesus put his sins, your sins, on him. He didn't do nothing wrong. You did. I did. And you know what he said? I'll take the lick for him. I'll take the lick for him. Through his blood. Now, here's the thing. He didn't give him money. He gave his life.
Yes.
But it amazes me sometimes that as believers, sometimes we don't give God, we don't give the Lord any credit sometimes for doing that. Because I don't know about you. If I knew somebody had given their life so that I could live, can I help you? I wouldn't do some of the stuff that I used to do. If I knew somebody had given their life for me, I'd give honor to the one who gave their life for me. I wouldn't just walk around like what they did. Oh, well, yeah, he died for me. Oh, well. But do you realize there are times as Christians, we treat God like, yeah, I know he died, but, huh? And that has everything to do with everything. You thinking about the mere fact that it should have been you on the cross and Jesus Christ took your place should cause you to shout. Amen. It should cause you to realize that, guess what? That he could have put you there and God could have damned you to hell. But you know what he said? No, I'm going to go all the way for it. I'm going to go all the way for it. And guess what? He didn't just hang there. He hung, bled, and he died, but he rose the third day. Yes. With all authority in heaven and in earth. Yes. And he took the rap for you and me when it should have been us. I don't know about you, But I'm going to shout it to the rooftop. It's good to know Jesus.
All right. Yes, it is. Good to know.
It's good to know Jesus.